Hey guys, what's up? Pour myself some tea here. Jasmine green, really good stuff. Mm. Okay, before I get on with the topic at hand, there's two things that I want to ask you guys real quick. The first um, is for those who are interested in the sword related stuff that I do. If you guys have the time, if you can do me a quick favor, down below should be a link to my friend Nick's YouTube channel, the Historical Fencing Guild. I've asked you guys to go over there before, and same thing now, but do something slightly different for me. I don't care if you leave him a PM or a message on his channel itself or underneath one of his videos. Please do me a favor and nag that guy to put up drilling videos, okay? I know some of you guys really like the past few drill videos that I've done, and I do plan on doing more when I get the chance. But if it's one thing that I know Nick is really good at doing, it's putting up videos like that. Well, just drills, period. He's really good at showing basic drills and different variations on how to do them, as well as how to come up with different drills from the basic classic guard positions from using rapiers and longswords and things like that. I personally think that's a fort of his. So nag him to do that because I don't know why he hasn't done that yet. I understand that he's busy, he's got things going on, but he really needs to get on that. So do me a favor, go and nag him and tell him that I said that he needs to hurry up and put videos like that on his channel. Besides, he needs to put up more videos anyway. So yeah, that's number one. Number two, because of correspondence I've had with some of you guys on the topic, as well as some of you guys saying that you had an interest in actually helping out the channel and finding ways to contribute, I think I'm gonna go ahead with the whole Patreon thing. It's not set up yet, and I still need to figure out exactly how I want to implement certain things, as far as tiers go. But I do want to let you guys know that at some point this month I'm going to be setting that up. Now, of course, this isn't going to be like a mandatory thing for anybody who wants to see videos up on the channel. I'm still going to do videos. It's just that with the way things have been going lately with my job and also finances like getting kind of crazy and certain things, I'm realizing that certain stuff that I want to be able to do with this channel, I'm just not going to be able to do currently with what I have to work with. There's certain sparring videos I wanted to be able to put up, like just hardcore sparring, where you guys are going to be able to see what I'm capable of, i.e. how much I suck. But I can't do that because I don't have things like the right sparring equipment, like sort of safety gear, helmets, things like that. I need to get that stuff, and that's not exactly in the budget right now. There's certain practice materials that I wanted to show you guys, certain practice gen that I recently discovered, certain training equipment that I can't get right now. Other particular products that I've been planning on showing you guys, I can't do that right now. And I don't know how long it's going to be before I can do that, as well as being able to set up, certain events and certain videos with certain people where I wanted to show off more techniques where, it's two of us doing it. And I'm realizing that some of this stuff I'm not going to be able to do in a timely manner unless I get some form of support. Again, I'm not trying to, like, say, hurry up. I'm not trying to make this like a begging thing, but I am realizing, especially with how things have been going lately, that I might need to do the whole Patreon thing. Again, this doesn't mean that if I don't get Patreon, I won't do videos. Of course I am. But some people have been expressing interest in giving me some type of support, and I figured I might as well go and do it. I haven't set it up yet. I want to be able to set it up in a fair way, and I don't want to set up any tiers higher than $5 or $10 if I go that route. And I want to also make sure that whatever I'm going to be offering is going to be worth it to you guys. So yeah, that's still in the works. So I'm just letting you know that's coming soon. Again, I wouldn't even be doing this if it wasn't for the fact that some guys have already expressed that, yeah, they were okay with the idea, but just letting you guys, it's going to happen soon. I just got to try to set it up so that in a way that I'm comfortable with and that you guys are comfortable with, especially since, quite frankly, I'm not even too sure if my channel and the videos I put up are worth that anyway. There are other channels on YouTube that I personally think are doing a much better job than I am, but I'm going to try my best with this. So, but let's get that out of the way. F that. You guys came here for this topic, so let's get with this topic. which is on Shaolin. Shaolin. You know, I thought I was done with this particular topic, to be honest with you guys. Last time I touched on the whole Shaolin myth thing was back in the last Shaolin myth video I did, which was a while ago. And I thought I pretty much said everything that I needed to say on that topic. Basically, the whole topic was on the myth that Shaolin was the birthplace of all Chinese martial arts, and that so many martial arts can be traced back to that temple. Long story short, it's not true. And the videos I put up on the subject pretty much explained how it wasn't true. And I thought that was the end all to be all of it. But fairly recently, because of a conversation that I had with somebody underneath one of my videos, which wasn't exactly related to the whole Shaolin topic, but the topic came up anyway. And don't worry, the conversation was actually pretty cordial. It was no flame war or anything like that. But still, I ended up having to say a lot of stuff that I realized the individual did not know. And that's when I was like, you know what? I guess there is a lot more that needs to be said in the topic that I hadn't put on the video. So I think I'm going to try in this video to once and for all explain why the whole thing about the Shaolin myth is a myth. And what I mean by the myth is the concept that, you know, Shaolin is the birthplace of Chinese martial arts, and that it was like considered during the heyday of Chinese martial arts to be the end all to be all of like fighting techniques in China. It's not really true, and actually the story of Shaolin's contributions to Chinese martial arts is greatly exaggerated. There is enough historical evidence to suggest this, and I wholeheartedly suggest to anybody who has a problem with this to do the research. There is plenty of good books and well-written articles on this topic which pretty much explain why this is a myth. In fact, this was already disproven way back in the early 1900s by the historian Tang Hao. In fact, a lot of the information that people are using these days come from that dude, because he actually went and did the research. He literally did the legwork, traveling to the temple, talking to people who practice martial arts. He blew the whole thing out of the water, but as I'm going to get into, there's a reason why his information didn't get spread. Before I get into the meat of this, though, I need to stress this because I know this is going to come up in the comment section, and I need to nip this in the bud now, okay? Just because I'm stating what I'm going to be stating in here does not mean that I have anything against Shaolin Temple and Shaolin Kung Fu, okay? I need to stress this. I have nothing against the temple. I have nothing against the martial arts that are being taught there or the people who train in Shaolin Kung Fu. Personally, I like this stuff. I like the interpretations of the martial arts that they've come up with. Hell, even the wushu stuff I think is entertaining to watch. I do have a problem with them practicing with tinfoil weapons, but that's whatever. That's a rant for another time. But I like, you know, the skills that are being displayed for the most part. I like the morality that they express, you know, and I think that a lot of what they're doing is, you know, for the most part, trying to be done for a good cause. But their supposed greatness is greatly exaggerated. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to, quote unquote, you know, I don't, excuse the expression, I'm not trying to shit all over their legacy of their martial arts. I'm just explaining the real history of the place and their real contributions to Chinese martial arts. Okay? So let's get that out of the way. I don't have anything against them, and I'm not trying to badmouth them or bring them down in any way. So that being said, I'm just simply explaining what's true and what's exaggerated. So anybody in the comment section who tries to state that, you know, I got a problem against them, or I'm bad-mouthing them, or I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to treat you pretty damn harshly, because I just explained why I'm saying what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with them. Okay? This is your warning. Anyway, I wasted enough time. Let's get on with this. The main thing I want to get into is why did the myth get exaggerated? Like, what started the myths? How did it get exaggerated? And why is it so persistent? Okay. We first need to start from the very beginning, or should I say the very beginning of the myths itself. The whole thing that martial arts began in Shaolin, and they all started from a guy named Bodhidharma or Dao Mo. I already stated before that it's not true. It's a myth. The simple observation that we can trace the earliest examples of Chinese martial arts being practiced as far back as, say, 400 BC. And Shaolin didn't even show up on the scene as a temple, much less as a place of learning martial arts, until centuries afterwards. So that right away just destroys that particular myth. But to get into the whole Bodhidharma thing, let's just pretend for a second that that's not really true. It is that, Shaolin, like, martial arts began way back here, and then Shaolin shows up later on, like, way down the timeline over here. So, whatever. But to go further into the whole Bodhidharma thing, we have actually two stories of how supposedly he brought martial arts to the temple. It's not just one. The first one, well, I shouldn't say the first one, as if it's the first one stole it. Just one of the stories is that when he showed up, the monks there were too weak to stay awake during meditation, and they weren't able to concentrate on what they were doing. So he developed and taught them a series of exercises to strengthen their bodies and minds. And these exercises, the monks later on turned into the basis for their martial arts skills. You hear, like, for instance, the 18 Lohan hands developed further from these exercises. Okay, that's one story. The other story is that when he went there, he ended up meditating in a cave for, like, I think 9 years. And then later on, after he died, the monks there, when going through his possessions, found two books. The first book, I don't exactly remember the name of it, and I'll put it in, down. It should be popping up right now in text. But it's not that important because it was lost, basically. The second book is the Yijin Jing, which roughly translates, I believe, into the Muscle Tendon Classic. I might be wrong on that. I don't know Chinese all that well, so. But that's the book that a lot of people focus on, because they say that that's the one where the exercises came from. That particular book, the monks found it, saw the exercises in there, and then trained in that. And then from those exercises, they later on developed martial arts. Well, actually, it gets a little bit more complicated than that, because the book was written in Sanskrit. The monks didn't know how to read it, so they couldn't get any information from the book at all, according to the story. It wasn't until this one aspiring monk, this one young monk, took the book and ventured out of the temple and found a dude named Paramiti, and that should be familiar to anybody. The name should be familiar to anyone who knows anything about Buddhist history, supposedly. He found this guy named Paramiti and asked Paramiti to translate the book. And after the book was translated, the monk was able to, use that information and train in the exercises that were written in there. And the exercises apparently made him an immortal, so to speak. He gained, if I remember the term, they said he gained a body that would last about 10,000 eons. So it basically strengthened him and gave him longevity. Nothing really about training him in martial arts, by the way, or giving him the strength for meditation. It was just more like, oh, these exercises are so awesome, it made me super strong. I think later on the student came back and taught it to them, and then somehow it got expanded into martial arts, but that's the way the story goes. We have a problem, though, because the two stories kind of contradict each other. One states that Bodhidharma himself taught the monks basic exercises that they later on would turn into the basis for Shaolin martial arts and then later on Kung Fu itself. But then the other story says it came from a book that a monk had to translate, and then that he himself learned these exercises and it turned him into some powerful dude who lived really long and had a strong body. So which is it? Did Bodhidharma himself teach him those exercises, or did a monk have to figure those out from a book that Bodhidharma left behind? What makes things even worse is that the book in question, there's evidence suggesting that that book actually didn't even come from that time period that Bodhidharma supposedly lived in. There is enough evidence to suggest that it actually came from a much later time period, that the book itself, that people, like, because there is a Yijin Jing. There's an early copy of the Yijin Jing, but the problem is the forewords and the so-called references in that book, the dates don't match up in there. And the story that it relates, it doesn't add up to history. And it's the book itself, I think it appeared around the Ming Dynasty. If I'm wrong about that, I'll correct myself in text. But yeah, it came much, much later than the period it supposedly showed up with. And then to add, the final cherry on top of this whole thing, Paramiti wasn't even alive at the time that this monk supposedly went to find him to translate the book. So there you go. So the whole thing makes no sense. So then why is the story being spread? Where did this story come from if it doesn't make any real sense? And how does this story relate to martial arts in particular? Because again, this had to do with exercises, health exercises. Like stuff to like I guess Neigong or Qigong type stuff, stretching, calisthenics. It's that sort of thing. How does this relate to fighting skills? That's the question that should be asked. Well, there is an answer, but it's kind of complicated. And we're going to get into that. What is rather interesting, and now I have to go through my notes here, is that the earliest that we really can find anything mentioned about Chinese martial arts, I think, goes back to around 628 AD. I could be wrong about that. I got a lot of notes on this, but the earliest I think that they can really record anything going on about like any record of martial arts being practiced at Shaolin and those skills actually, or fighting monks in particular. The whole image of a fighting monk, we see something mentioned about that around during 628 when a stone tablet was raised in the temple about how the monks were able to repel a group of marauders that were, trying to attack the temple, and in the process, the monastery itself suffered a whole lot of damage. And then later on, 13 monks were able to help capture a dude named Wang Shichong, who was a threat to the new dynasty that was raising up at the time, the Tang dynasty. So that's like the first, really, it's really the first and earliest bit of information that we actually have historically, at least, on fighting monks. Before then, we don't really get anything. I mean, you have the foundation of Shaolin Monastery. It was founded around 495 AD, I believe. Which, by the way, again, Shaolin martial arts, Chinese martial arts in particular, we see the earliest references going back to 400 BC. Then Shaolin Monastery is founded in 495 AD. So, yeah. And then we don't really see anything about fighting monks or any real historical evidence to monks having fighting skills until around 628 AD. And I'm not even trying to, question whether there's any truth to it or not, but I think there is. I think there is some truth that there were, 13 monks that helped to capture this guy. But then here's the interesting part. From 628 to 1517, there's nothing mentioned at all. Think about this for a second. 628 AD to 1517, there isn't a single bit of historical evidence of martial arts being practiced in Shaolin at all. That's a long period of time that there are no records whatsoever of any evidence of martial arts being practiced at the temple. Don't you find that kind of odd? If the place, remember, people keep the whole myth of Shaolin, the whole legend of Shaolin is that this was a place that was famous for its martial arts skills. It was known far and wide as the place. Like, it was like supreme technique. It was the shit. It was all that in a bag of chips. So like, this was the place that if you wanted to be supreme in martial arts, you had to go here, and then you had to be lucky enough to get in to begin with to learn these skills. And yet, from 628 to 1517, we have no records. And before anyone asks, yes, people were writing about the temple during that time. There were tons of people going to and fro, famous visitors who went to Shaolin, visited the place, and wrote down their impressions of the temple. They talked about what they saw there. They talked about how great the place was. They talked about the Buddhism that was practiced there. They talked about some illustrious monks that were there teaching what they were teaching. But they didn't mention a damn thing about martial arts. Curious. What's even more curious is when we do start seeing stuff written afterwards, which is, like I said, around 1517, what we see is questionable. First, around 1517, we happen to see a stone tablet that was put up in honor of a dude that they named King Jinalo. I don't think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Jinnalo. Jinalo. This guy was said to have transformed himself from an ordinary kitchen staff dude into a fierce giant who was brandishing a flaming staff to scare off the Red Turban rebels who had attacked during 1551. I mean, sorry, wrong. 1351. Sorry. Like I said, I got a lot of notes. Now, some people go, hey, there you go, 1351, that's between 628 and 1517. No, you don't understand. The stone tablet that was raised up in 1517 mentions this supposed thing that had happened in 1351. But there's nothing from 1351 talking about this. Not only that, but this particular stone tablet is supposed to celebrate this dude and talk about how awesome the reason why the stone tablet was raised up and the reason why the story was spread was to talk about, the foundations of Shaolin staff technique and how awesome the Shaolin staff technique is. Problem is, this was the only dude that was supposedly repelling the invaders that came in. What they're not telling you is that everyone else fled. And despite him trying to hold them off, he ended up getting killed. And they had to leave the monastery. All the monks split. They couldn't keep these guys back. And they didn't come back until, I think what? I don't remember if it was years later. But it was definitely, it was several years later. Half the buildings were destroyed. And the monks were just scattered to the freaking four winds until years later when okay, it's safe enough to come back, let's go. For a place that is renowned for awesome fighting skills, don't you find it kind of odd that one dude, only one guy, was holding them back and everybody else was like, fuck this shit, we gotta go? Yeah, that doesn't exactly, paint an image of this place being the center of martial arts or being the foundation of martial arts skills or it being a place of awesome technique. This looks more like there were a few people there that knew how to fight, but it wasn't something that was necessarily expected. And there is some evidence to suggest this. For one thing, and I do need to stress this. I do believe that there were some people at the temple who knew how to fight. Because after all, it's not like people are born monks, okay? People from all walks of life ended up going to Shaolin. And many of them had different skills. Some of them, used to be cooks. I mean, there are some people who went there since they were children. Some families can't support their kids or maybe orphans or something made it over there. But you had ex-soldiers, or past military. People who were maybe professional fighters or maybe they used to be part of an escort service or a bodyguard service. Excuse me. Or, maybe even ex-bandits who wanted to repent their ways. They had fighting skills under their belt. And later on when they decided to live a life of peace, they still had these fighting skills. And some people then go, well, why would they go to, Buddhism is a religion that teaches nonviolence. Why would they retain these skills? Well, you also have to remember that Shaolin owned a lot of land. Remember, they had buildings, they had land that they needed to protect. Cultures all around the world, certain religious organizations had land that they needed to protect somehow. Sometimes that protection would come from within. Sometimes that protection would come from, outside. There were other people who were loosely connected to the temple, or maybe they weren't necessarily monks, but they went there, had the fighting skills to try to, protect its borders. Sometimes they were able to repel them. Other times they couldn't. This particular incident with King Jun-Olo was one of the times they couldn't. But there were at least some people there who, it's feasible to think that some of them had fighting skills. But that doesn't necessarily state that there was a culture of fighting monks in the temple itself, and this incident seems to suggest that it wasn't. Now, what's even worse is that later on, and again, we got a long period of history, a long period of time, where we don't really have any historical evidence of any fighting technique. Then the later evidence that we do have, which showed up around 1517, talks about an event where most of the monks ran for the hills. That's a problem when comparing it to, this whole thing about, oh, these guys are awesome. It gets worse. There's a general named Yu Da Yu, all right? I think he visited the temple. I'm trying to remember what time he showed up, but he lived during 1503 to 1580. I used to have the exact date that he showed up at the temple. I don't have it now. I don't know why. It's probably in some other note file somewhere that I got to dig up. But he had visited the monastery. and was disappointed with what he saw. Again, that's a problem when we look at the story that we're given. The general story is that Shaolin is this awesome place for fighting. But then this general shows up over there and is like, huh, you guys aren't all that great. In fact, to make things even crazier, when he went over there and was like, man, you guys need help. You guys, this is sad. He then selected a few monks to train with him on the field. He's like, you know what? You guys don't seem to be doing this right. You're doing it wrong. I'm gonna take some of these guys under my wing and put them through intensive freaking training. All right. And then when they come back, then they'll raise your standards. Okay. Because right now you guys are, you ain't cutting it. No, this won't fly. I'm going to train these guys up right. And then when they come back, they'll train you guys up right. And then you'll be able to raise your heads on high when compared to other martial artists out there. That's embarrassing, really. If you're going, for anybody who's going to be like, oh, Shaolin was awesome, and then this story comes out, that ain't cool. I hate to say it, but again, this isn't a historical record. This isn't legend here. This is documented stuff. Okay? And it's kind of interesting that it was after that, and especially during the Ming Dynasty, that Shaolin staff technique became known as really freaking awesome. Okay? Now, it is suggested that the reason why Shaolin staff technique got so big, became a big deal, was because of what happened during the end of the Yuan Dynasty when the Red Turbans came in and effed things up. I can understand the monks coming back on, we ain't going through that again. F this shit. And of course you would erect a tablet talking about, if you want to raise morale, if you want to, get your people going, no, we're awesome, right? Here's this legend of this one dude who during that time with his flaming staff, he was able to beat them back. You guys want to have an awesome staff too, right? Well, let's trade in these techniques to make our staff invincible so that we never suffer a defeat again and continue the legend of the great King Junolo. It's propaganda. It's nothing new. We've seen things like this all the time. In fact, later on, as I'm going to be showing you, this is a constant theme in Chinese history and Chinese martial arts, like taking something from the past that may or may not have happened and using it to raise the spirits of people in the present time period that they doing that exercise. Like they'll take something from there and use it to make people like, yeah, we're awesome. You like follow this guy's legacy, like preserve his memory and be awesome too. Just to prop themselves up. But the reason why they're doing that is because they're trying to take care of some type of deficiency that they themselves are sensing within their own ranks martially. So with what I just stated, and there's a couple of other things of note also about how something that I also have to bring up is that notice it's the staff technique that later on was considered to be a big deal. And again, their staff technique really began to be known during the Ming Dynasty. Now, it wasn't during the dynasties before then. The dynasties before then, we get like no real information on the monks having a culture of developing fighting skills. And then when we finally do, it's only until the Ming Dynasty. This is the second to last dynasty of China. And then to add to that, it's just the staff techniques that they're talking about. And I've mentioned this before. Shaolin, when it was known for martial arts skills, was known for its staff techniques. Not its fist techniques, not its sword techniques, not, saber techniques, none of that. Staff. General Jiji Guan, who is a well-known Ming military leader, he's most famous for repelling pirates on the coast, particularly Japanese pirates. He written down 2 books on, how to train up troops. One of them, he happens to list several styles and schools and certain weapon skills that he believed to be worthy of note. He also does put fist skills. It's interesting. He personally thinks that fist skills are useless overall for training up troops for obvious reasons. I mean, you go on the battlefield, you need weapons. Fighting with your hands isn't exactly going to cut it. But he did believe that it's still a good idea to train them in fist skills simply to strengthen their bodies and build up their confidence in dealing with an opponent. But what's interesting is that when he does list a few basic empty hand exercises, that he thinks are good to train troops in, Shaolin is not what he shows. The techniques he showed did not come from Shaolin at all. Now the staff techniques do. He does mention, yeah, they got good staff technique, and he introduces several staff exercises that he thinks are worthwhile. So hey, there's a point for Shaolin. But that's all he shows. There's nothing about fist skills, nothing about Neigong, nothing about, nothing else. All the other techniques he introduces come from elsewhere, which again kind of reinforces the notion that whatever techniques that people thought were awesome, they didn't think it necessarily came from Shaolin. Whatever, fist skills, sword skills, whatever. It was only the staff skills that they thought were decent. And that is in way down the line in Chinese martial arts history. Before then, they really didn't care much about what was going on at the temple. And then when they did go and see what was over at the temple, they didn't think it was all that great until the Ming Dynasty. So, with all that said, how the hell did we get from actual martial artists and military leaders at the time thinking that Shaolin was to suddenly us now in the 21st century, which is ridiculous that's in the 21st century we actually believe this still. How do we get from that to now as, oh, Shaolin was awesome. That was the place to learn. Well, there is an answer, but some of you guys aren't going to like it. Ultimately, what we can trace the origins of this sudden belief in Shaolin being awesome stems from two places, and one of them more than the other. The rise of certain rebellious and later on ultra-patriotic groups trying to overthrow the Qing dynasty and then later on trying to kick out the foreigners, and a fictional novel. That's it. To go with the first thing I mentioned, during around the 1800s in China, there was a whole lot of freaking unrest going on. Like a lot of it. There was a lot of craziness popping up. The Qing dynasty, there was lots of rebellions popping up. The Chinese did not like the Qing dynasty. They were always trying to find ways to overthrow it, and so many of their revolutions failed. But especially during the 1800s, when things were really beginning to fall apart, so many different groups were popping up all over the place to try to find ways to bring back the glorious, Han, Chinese spirit, to get rid of the, the Manchu and bring back the glory days. And a lot of these groups were martial arts groups. Some of the names of them was like the Hongmen Society, the Righteous and Harmonious Fists. That's an awesome freaking name. The Little Knives, Big Knives. These organizations were, trying to hype people up to join their group. And they need to find a way to market it. If you see this in today's days and times, like certain military groups will try to find ways to hype up their cause to get people to join them. And they'll do things like, talk about how glorious it is to join their organization, how much of a hero you will be if you join the organization, what type of awesome skills you will learn if you join. But another thing they'll do is that they'll appeal to your sense of patriotism, or they'll appeal to your sense of admiring heroes in the past. And one way they'll do it is linking themselves to people in the past. And that's what many of these groups used to do. They would say that, oh, we happen to be descended from this great, that either they'll say we're continuing the martial spirit of so-and-so in the past. Like, for instance, Yue Fei, that's a dude who, like, it's funny, for all the different martial arts that link themselves to either Shaolin or Wudang, another person that they try to link themselves to is Yue Fei, whether or not the martial art has anything to do with Yue Fei. And you'll find groups saying, oh, we're continuing his tradition, or we're descended from him, or we're descended from like an ancient Taoist saint, or a particular monk from the past. Like, they always try to find some way to bring that up, like kind of link themselves to that. And then when the Boxer Rebellion was popping up, this is when they were really starting to try to find ways of meshing in mysticism and legend with their group as a marketing ploy. What else, saying, oh, we're linked, complete descendants from so-and-so in the past, and we embody the spirit of, like, Guan Yu or whatever. And if you join us, you'll have his spirit too. And they started incorporating, like, mysticism and magic in even. Like, because remember, they were dealing with foreigners who were shooting guns at them. How do you deal with that? Well, we'll teach you how to repel the invaders, and you'll have bodies that can withstand bullets. You'll be impervious to that. And they will use a lot of illusions and a lot of tricks to get people to believe this stuff. Some of the stuff that people see today, like, the way somebody will stand there like that and they'll poke spears at them and swords at them, kind of comes from that time period. It's ways of tricking people to join their group. Look, we're impervious. This was also street performers tricks, which I've touched on in the past, and I'll touch on a little bit more in here. Again, there's a lot of information here, and I'm trying to go through everything quickly because this video is getting really long. But these groups tried to latch onto any legend that they could, and these particular tactics were later on used by just everyday martial artists trying to get people into their school. Now, here's where the novel comes in. The name of the book is named The Travels of Lao Khan, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I might be doing it wrong, but I believe it was The Travels of Lao Khan. And it's a fictional novel. It is not true. I need to stress this. It was written between 1904 and 1907, right? And it was popularized because it was being spread, I think, in some type of local magazine that was being, published, around that time. And that book was the very first written record where martial arts and Shaolin Temple were linked, in terms of that being the source of martial arts, that it came from Bodhidharma, and that Shaolin became China, country renowned. It was known all throughout the land for being an awesome place to learn Kung Fu. It was from that novel. No other historical document makes that link. This book does. The whole thing about Bodhidharma teaching these special exercises that the monks turn into fighting skills, and that it came from the Yi Jin Jing, this book. Nothing else mentions that. Now, let's put this all into context. All right? You already have an atmosphere where martial artists and certain martial arts groups are trying to do whatever it takes to get people to join their groups. And then later on, many of these masters who, when this book came out, again, this is during the early 1900s. This is during the revolutionary, the Republic era of China. And there was a lot going on. There's two time periods that I really think that anybody interested in Chinese martial arts history, they really should study. Anybody really should if they care about history, period. It's fascinating. The time during the Boxer Rebellion and what all these different groups were doing and the culture at that time, and during the Republican era of China. The Republican era of China is very crucial when looking at the development of modern Chinese martial arts, because this was during a time period where they were trying to modernize in the wake of imperialism. They already had, Britain coming in, taking territory from them after the Opium Wars. They, got the Americans knocking down their door. They see Japan militarizing and becoming awesome, and suddenly they're looking like the quote-unquote sick men of Asia. They wanted to change that image. So this is when they started to nationalize martial arts. Before, martial arts used to be a secret thing. Schools would keep it to themselves, military guys would keep it to themselves. It wasn't something that you can just simply go to, hey, I want to learn Kung Fu. It wasn't like that. But now, in the wake of all this modernization and trying to make your people look strong and healthy and all that, now martial arts is being used as a patriotic tool to make, first of all, they wanted their people to take patriotic pride in being Chinese, and they wanted people to believe that it was your patriotic duty to be strong of body and mind, to be physically fit, and also that to learn some martial arts skill, like the Japanese in their Bushido, well, we got Chinese Kung Fu, and we can fight, and we can use weapons, we the shit. Martial arts manuals started being mass-produced, started being published. It wasn't something secret that some master kept hidden from his other students, which is kind of funny when you consider that most martial artists in the past didn't even know how to read. And even during that time period, most commoners didn't know how to read. Many of them did not have a formal education. So whatever they learned was just stuff that was passed down to them orally. And a lot of what was passed down orally was legend, hearsay, gossip. It wasn't necessarily factual stuff that was scrutinized. Now, consider that. All this stuff being, this is a time period that you're living in where people are trying to get people to learn martial arts any way they can. And not to mention, this is also a time period where martial artists themselves are trying to find any way to make a freaking living. Their skills are considered outdated at this point, especially during a time period of modernization. Before, in the past, you needed martial arts skills in order to, defend yourself from bandits, to be part of the military. Like, if you were a martial artist, this was to learn martial arts was to learn a trade, basically. It was a physical skill that you did with your hands. If you were learning martial arts, you were hoping to become famous militarily, like you would get into the military and your skills would, raise you up that way, where you gain status that way. If you couldn't do it that way, then the next best thing you could do was either be a bodyguard or, better yet, be part of an escort service or start an escort business. Because like transporting goods from one town or one province to another was dangerous. You had bandits, raiders, anybody can just come down from the mountains and like chop you up and take your stuff. So they used to hire escorts that would, be the bodyguards for the goods. Like they would, be there to guard the equipment, sort of like, armored guards today transporting money from one bank to another. These guys, would travel with this stuff and, they would protect it, either through martial means or through diplomatic means. And that's another video from another time. But now these skills aren't needed anymore. Again, this is the modern era. If you're going to be transporting goods, you just put them on a train and put them in a boat. They got to worry about bandits that way. Military-wise, they got guns now. Hand-to-hand fighting skills, sword fighting skills are only going to take you so far. So that meant that martial artists now had very few chances of being able to make a decent living. And in fact, martial arts were being looked down upon as like the fringe elements of society. Especially if you were just nothing but a street performer, you were the lowest of the low. I think I've mentioned that before. So anybody opening up a school needed to find some freaking way to get students in the door. Now, remember what I said about what certain groups like, the Hongmen group or the Righteous and Harmonious Fists, and they're very important because they're the ones who helped to spearhead the whole Boxer Rebellion to begin with, and incorporating mysticism and legends and weird practices into the martial arts just to get people to join them. Okay? I just spilled my tea. And then now this book, The Travels of Lao Khan, gets popular. And remember, this is amongst a group of people who didn't necessarily have a formal education. Now, some people, of course, the people who can read the book, they got some formal education, they can read, but they're probably also passing the story down to other people. Now, let's say you're a martial artist. You're running a school. And you already know about some of these other tactics to get people to join groups. Like you're linking yourself to ancestors. You're linking yourself to legendary people of the past. And now this book gets spread out about how Shaolin is awesome. Okay? And then these people come to your door. Hey, I heard about how awesome Shaolin Kung Fu is. You teach a Kung Fu school. You guys teach Shaolin? Yes. Yeah, we do. In fact, the guy, like my teacher and his teacher before him learned from this one monk who came from the temple himself. Yeah, they taught us the same techniques. You come here, you learn Shaolin Kung Fu too. My techniques come straight from Shaolin. It was one of the new styles that developed there. This type of shit went on like crazy during that time period. It was just marketing. And it came from, it was a form of propaganda as well as a form of marketing just to get people in their schools. Because, hey, they got to eat. And it didn't help that one of the official organizations that later on was in charge of spreading all these martial arts manuals around just grossly divided up martial arts into two major camps, Shaolin styles and Wudang styles. Whether or not they had anything to do with those two particular locations or whether they came from those locations, didn't matter. This style comes from Shaolin. This style comes from Wudang. That's, they just arbitrarily did it. I mentioned this before in one of my earlier videos on the subject. And this really screwed things up. Now, for anybody who's thinking that's, how could people have fallen for something like that? Or that couldn't have happened that way. People would have been able to figure this shit out. The fact that I have to make this video now explain that this is a myth should tell you that, no, people do fall for this. And people fall for it all the time, and people will do things like this all the time just to market the skills that they teach. Look at the ninjutsu hype. Most of the guys out there claiming to teach ninjutsu don't know shit about ninjutsu. They don't even have a proper lineage, so to speak. Hell, people are even questioning, Hatsumi and his group on whether what he's teaching is truly ninjutsu or not. But they market the hell out of it because they know people heard big things about how awesome the ninja was. Well, Best if you happen to have some martial arts skill and you want to get some people in the door, you happen to know something Japanese, maybe you know a little bit of swordsmanship, change your regular white karate gi into black ones, and then basically say that you're teaching ninjutsu, and you get the people in the door. Now you just put food on your table. People do this shit all the time. So-called teaching dim mat. To this day, people, oh yeah, this is Shaolin skills I'm teaching. Oh, these are secret Wudang techniques. People do this stuff to get people in the door, and people continue to fall for it. They prey on people's ignorance to get people into the door. It's considered a marketing tactic. Hell, the katana. These days, the modern concept of the katana, people elevate that sword to a ridiculous status when it's just another freaking sword. And in fact, it's a sword that, for as much as we can, celebrate the craftsmanship of it, a lot went into that. We can celebrate the technical expertise it makes to make one of those things. It's a somewhat flawed design, depending on if you think about using it in the overall context that other swords in other cultures have used. It easily chips. It can bend if you happen to do a bad cut with it. It definitely can't do well against people in armor. It does great in the context that it was made in, but it's not an invincible freaking weapon, but people believe it is. And why do they believe in it? Because of fiction. And that's the key thing here. Because of fictional accounts of what the katana can do, people are expecting it to do things it can't do. And because people are expecting it to do things it can't do, the people who are selling these weapons prey upon that ignorance so they can sell them. And it's fiction that pushed that market. The same thing happened with the legend of Shaolin. It was fiction that propelled that myth, and it was fiction that people used in order to propel their own martial arts that they were teaching, whether or not it had any connection to Shaolin whatsoever. They helped to perpetuate the myth simply because it was considered a marketing ploy, and also because a lot of people simply didn't know any better. I mean, if you're a master and your master before you and your master before you told you that these techniques all came from Shaolin, well, who are you to argue? You didn't do the research. And again, the one guy at that time, during the early 1900s, who blew this out the water, Tang Hao, he wrote his findings in basically in classical Chinese. And basically only people who were already scholars would be able to appreciate. The average person in the street, they couldn't read that shit. And they quite frankly couldn't care. And if there was a Kung Fu master who could read this stuff, you think he's going to tell his students when he's making money off of this shit? So, I'm sorry this video went as long as it did. I really was hoping to keep this under half an hour, but there's just so much information on this. I summarized as much as I possibly could on this particular topic to basically show you guys how in every way this was just a myth that was perpetuated for a variety of reasons. And I should stress that not all of it was from, ill intent. It's not like, oh, it only spread because people were trying to fleece the people. I mean, yeah, there was some of that, but by and large, a lot of people were just simply doing it because they didn't know any better. Again, there are people today who perpetuate that story because they don't know any better. As far as they know, that's what their teacher taught them. Our style comes from Shaolin, and Shaolin is the ultimate place to learn Kung Fu. Shaolin Temple today is making tons of money off the tourism trade simply because of that myth. Because people didn't know any better. And hell, there are monks in the temple who don't really know any better. There's some that do, but they got people to feed and pockets to fill. They got land to maintain. They got buildings they want to keep up to code. You think they're going to be telling people, yeah, all this is mostly a myth. Yeah, our fighters weren't considered all that great until the Ming Dynasty, and it was just for staff techniques. I mean, you go to Shaolin, you see a lot more than staff techniques there. Now, this is not to say that the techniques that are being taught there now don't have any value. Pretty sure they do. But what you're seeing is a reinterpretation of the arts that were supposedly practiced there. It's not necessarily a direct line to the past. And in fact, a lot of Chinese martial arts are that way to begin with. There's a lot of stuff as reinterpretations or new versions of arts. Hell, some stuff people are learning now is fairly recent. I say fairly recent, like Bagua Zhang, for instance, which is the art that I like and practice. That's a fairly recent art. It came about during the 1800s. Okay, so, not everything is super ancient. And sometimes something that they claim to be ancient is a reinterpretation of something. Like they'll say, oh, it traces back way, way to this time period. Yeah, but they might have lost the techniques from there and they had to reclaim it. A good example would be two-handed Chinese fighting skills. The amount of time that the Chinese have lost and regained two-handed sword fighting skills is ridiculous. Like, there was a time period where during the Han Dynasty, they were fighting with two hands, and then it went down to the one-handed Dao and one-handed sword fight, and they lost it. And then they regained it again, I think, during the Sui Dynasty, and then they lost it again. And then during the Ming Dynasty, I think General Jiji Guan brought it back, and then they sort of lost it again. Hell, fairly recently, I forgot this dude's name. I'll have his name, like, it'll pop up right now. That dude is a dude who is crazy about martial arts, and he was trying to do research on two-handed Chinese fighting techniques, and he had to reinvent a lot of shit. Like, he created a new form of two-handed sword fighting from old stuff that he had to research because next to no one that he knew how to do the shit. So this happens all the time, that things get reinterpreted. It's not necessarily a direct line. I think I'm going slightly off topic, but I'm hoping this kind of touches on what I'm trying to tell you guys. Like, what you're seeing taught there today, at Shaolin today, isn't necessarily something that was being practiced thousands of years ago. It's a reinterpretation. This is not to take away from it, however. To be honest, the reinterpretation might be still pretty damn good because they have to take into account the way people fight today. They have to make it look ancient, because otherwise people are going to go, hey, this is not real Shaolin Kung Fu. But, they have to take into account how people fight these days and how to counteract that. So, yeah. I'm sorry this is almost an hour now. I really was trying to keep this around half an hour. I've recorded this video 3 times, and this is the shortest I've been able to get it, believe it or not. There's a lot of information on here. For anybody who doubts my word and or anyone who's really interested in this, there's lots of information on this particular topic to blow the myth out of the water. Professor Kang Yu, who's done extensive research on Chinese martial arts, he's written a book called The Spring and Autumn Period of Chinese Martial Arts. I highly recommend you pick that book up because he goes into the origins of so many styles and where things came from, and it will open your eyes if you happen to believe mostly legends about Chinese martial arts. Then there's that book on Chinese martial arts manuals. I've talked about that book before. It is a really good introduction to this particular topic. I recommend you pick that one up. And then, if you can, find the works of Stanley Henning. He's written lots of articles on this subject, and several of them are free online. You can easily find them. They go into this topic in depth and bring up documents to look up and stuff like that. And hell, you can even find translated copies of ancient Chinese Kung Fu manuals for free. Like, I happen to have, for instance, the training manuals from Jiji Guan. And they're translated, and I've looked through them, and yeah, indeed, the only thing that he mentions about Shaolin is just the staff techniques, and everything else is, from elsewhere, which opens up your eyes on just how Shaolin was regarded and what they were regarded for. So, again, this information is there. People aren't coming out with this because they want to crap all over Shaolin. No, it's because they're interested in the real history of Chinese martial arts, because Chinese martial arts is worth learning the real history about. We're in the 21st century now. It's way past time we stopped believing in tall tales and myths about, real physical fighting skills. Okay? That's just me. So, again, this has gone on long enough. I hope you guys were able to get something out of this. I sure hope this opens up a decent amount of discussion in the comment section. Real discussion, not a flame war. So, yeah. I've talked long enough. I got an eye at this. Catch you guys later.